the Invitational in Seattle, just a couple weeks down the road. I know it's more than a month, but it'll be here faster than you think.
And with competition really heating up, Joe can't, even though he's qualified for the Invitational, he can't feel that confident that if he attends no more tournaments this year, that he'll have 2 buys in Seattle. Because there's so many players on the list who have a strong incentive to show up to everything they possibly can.
You saw the set start off with a dismal backwater, so that's why he's at 21. Of course, his signature white-bordered lands.
Loves the revised lands.
On Griffin's side, he's got a 3rd land. He will be deploying a Goblin Rabble Master. We'll see if this is good to go. It's time for a Goblin token. Looks like that's in. Of course, on Griffin's side, his mana, Temple of Triumph, a Battlefield Forge, and a Nomad Outpost. So his mana is online. There's a Goblin token, a red zone. Lossett's going to take 1. He's back down to 20 as we are underway here in Game 1 of Round 3 from Oakland.
This is the big test. Joe cannot counter this Rabble Master on the draw. His removal spells, 4 Bile Blight, 4 Hero's Downfall, 2 Murderous Cut. So he needs to have a 2nd black mana before any of those are even available, and then to have one of the cards in question.
Well, there is your 2nd black. Here's 3. That's a Hero's Downfall. Get the Rabble Master off the table. Back Griffin's way, we're going to go. Quickly draws a card. It's a copy of Butcher the Horde. 3 mana, another Rabble Master. Trigger there, Goblin there, in for 2. Lossett down to 18. He's in some trouble. There's a land and mana confluence. Pass the turn back over to Lossett, who will untap and draw here momentarily.
This is one of the marquee threats in the format, perhaps the best threat against blue-black control. And the type of matchup where you get to see the differentiation between blue-black control and blue-white control with Last Breath, with removal spells that are a little bit easier to cast on time. Blue-white control is a lot less susceptible to specifically Goblin Rabble Master than the alternative blue-black control builds.
Bloodstained Mire is land number 4. Lossett going to sacrifice that, go down to 17. He'll be digging up a swamp, of course. He is blue-black control, no red in there. And unlike Legacy, the format that Joe is very familiar with, no sweet dual lands to search up.
But still with Murderous Cut and Dig Through Times, low opportunity cost ways of putting cards in the graveyard, valuable for Joe.
So Lossett can get out from underneath his Goblin army. Definitely in some trouble here as Rabble Master is looking to run away with this thing. See our table spotter here having a brief conversation with Joe. Not entirely sure about what, but if we do find out, we'll let you guys know. See what Lossett's going to put together on this turn. And you see in Griffin's hand, he does have a copy of Chain of the Rocks, so some dead cards there.
Exactly.
It's time for a card like Murderous Cut. Yep. It's going to delve 1, take care of the Rabble Master.
Again, no reason for Joe to leave a mana up. So just commits as much mana as possible to the cut and leaves other things in his graveyard for other delve spells down the line.
Butcher the Horde. Going to sacrifice a token to give that thing haste. In for 6.
Like given haste here, unlikely that the token amounts to 5 points of damage, so might as well cash it in.
Lossett going to draw a card. Another copy of Dismal Backwater. Now he's got to beat the 5/4 flyer too. But as you mentioned, dead cards are definitely an issue here for Griffin. He's got 2 copies of Chain of the Rocks in his hand now.
The other side of this is puts a lot of pressure on Joe to win game 1, because post-board Marc almost certainly improves just by getting cut some of this creature removal.
Perilous Vault comes into play here for Lossett. The big reset button as Griffin does take a look. It's not cheap to do it.
Not quite Nevernull's disc, but can still get the job done in lower power formats.
So Crackling Doom was the draw. Griffin weighing his options. You see another copy of Butcher the Horde in his hand. Looks like he's going to deploy that. Situation here, we can sacrifice a token. And he will deal 10 points of damage over to Lossett. Butchers are very large. Now there's a Chain to the Rocks. Oh, wow.
This is really nice because Joe has to most likely use the Perilous Vault to blow up the one Butcher in play, and that unlocks the other Butcher.
That is awesome.
Marc Griffin, you are impressive. Who said he had dead cards game 1? Even his Chain of the Rocks, he's getting to cash in here. Oh,
Yep, that's why I wanted to bring it up. I want to make sure that you have to exile target creature and opponent control, so this is not going to work the way he wants to. So we're going to stop the game.
yeah, I've never seen this interaction before,
Yep.
period, so I just didn't know that this could even be a thing.
Yeah, I wanted to confirm that that was the case here. So I was like, that's a little too creative, and I know that the way the cards are worded now, with Chain to the Rocks, yeah, you want to check the wording on that because it does say exile target creature and opponent control, so we'll see what the ruling will be here. Definitely a creative play when you think about it, because you think, well, these effects can target anything.
I've never wanted to Chain to Rocks my own creature. It's never come in any games I played.
Yep.
Marc did it so confidently, and Joe let it resolve so confidently that I just assumed it was worded that way.
Yep.
But apparently not.
Yep, so looks like we're going to have to bring the judges into this equation.
Yeah.
Which is perfectly fine, as this is a kind of an unfamiliar situation for both players. So
A perhaps too creative play. I like it if it works.
I like it if it works too. It's
Yeah.
a great play if it works. And like you, I thought it worked as well. But and it seemed like both the players did too.
Yeah.
So it's a creative way to get out from underneath the vault. But oddly enough, it does not work that way.
And yeah, again, both players Marc did it with no hesitation, like he's done this before.
Yep.
And Joe didn't even pick up Chain of the Rocks and read it. He's just like, okay, that resolves.
Yep. I'm in trouble.
Right.
Yeah.
This is big time trouble, but it does not work that way. So we'll see how the resolution happens.
Yep, once we do have a ruling for you guys, we will certainly let you know. But in the meantime, what we're going to talk about is our 2015 Open Series schedule here. A lot of dates already been announced for quarter number 1. Quarter number 2 is in the works, as are Q3 and Q4. But we do have quarter number 1 for you guys, where we'll be going. Among those trips, we're going to Houston.
For the first time.
Yeah.
First time in Open Series history that we're going to Houston. We go to Dallas pretty frequently, but don't get to touch the other parts of Texas very often. We're going to be hitting there in February, so you see the January schedule here: Columbus, Philly, D.C., and Indianapolis. We'll get through the
Chilly.
month. It'll be chilly.
Making
but
us pack our big coats. And well, you don't wear a scarf. You're not the type, but
No.
I will have my scarf.
I'd
with
rather
me.
freeze to death than wear a scarf.
Well, that's very telling.
Yeah.
I don't think that's true, but well, maybe.
Well, if
maybe.
I was put to the test, maybe. But in the abstract, I prefer not to go. Anyhow, things get a little bit warmer, and we hit some different spots here, as you see in February. Houston for the first time. Los Angeles, that's very nice for me as I get to drive there. Baltimore, which I enjoy going to quite a bit. And then a standard Grand Prix in Miami, March 6th through 8th. This will be very exciting. We'll have more information at MagicGP.com. Once GP New Jersey concludes, we'll start rolling out more information. That'll carry us through the end of quarter 1 here, as we have Dallas and then the Invitational in Richmond.
Won't need the scarf in Miami.
No.
I think we'll be just fine.
Although Miami seems like you just wear a scarf because that's what people do, even though it's warm out kind of city.
Yeah.
I'm still not going to rock it.
Actually, I would still rock it, honestly. I think it'd be sweet. So, looks like we do have a ruling on exactly what did happen. The game was too far to back up in that situation. So I don't know if a game loss is being issued or if Joe just died there, because Joe was at 1 and Marc had a copy of Crackling Doom in his hand.
Yes.
So I think, and again, we'll get exact confirmation on what the result of the game is, if it is a game loss or if just play continued on, and then the Crackling Doom ended the game.
Right.
So
I think that, I don't want to speculate because I'm, not a judge, and it's always challenging to weigh in there, but I would be surprised if Marc got a game loss in that scenario, though I suppose it's not impossible. But I think he had the win sewn up regardless, as you mentioned, because he just attacks the next turn with his 2 Butchers. Joe has to use the Perilous Vault, and then Crackling Doom wraps things up.
Yep. So again, when we do have exact confirmation on what does happen there, we'll let you guys know. Yeah, so Marc does win the game with the Crackling Doom and then 2 game rules violations. So looks like we're going to head back down the match, and we'll take a look at the sideboards here. I've got Marc in front of me. You've got Joe, so I'll let you take a look at Joe's first.
Joe has 4 copies of Drown Sorrow, 2 Freakish Cures, 3 Negates, 4 copies of the Merc Lurker, and 2 copies of Thoughtseize. So I'm not sure how deep he's going to want to go down in these anti-little creature threats, because the Mardu mid-range deck goes all the way up to Butcher the Horde and Stormbreath Dragon. So you have things like Drowning Sorrow and Freakish Cure that are good against certain elements of the deck, but not really that great against others. I think the Merc Lurkers are likely to come in. I think the Negates here are fine. I don't know. It's tough to sideboard here because he has a lot of cards that are okay, but no real home runs. But I like bringing in the Merc Lurkers because they block a number of things. It's not just good against Rabble Master. If there's things like Burmaz, Secret of the Way hanging out on the list, Merc Lurker does a lot of work there as well.
3 Anger of the Gods, 2 in Hostilities, an Elspeth Sun's Champion, 3 copies of Breathe the Bones, 2 Glare of Heresy, a Challenger Power Master, an additional copy of Winged Rock, and then 2 copies of Utter Rend is what Griffin is working with in his sideboard. Like the copies of Read the Bones the most for me.
It's a slow, grindy matchup, and unlike the control decks of old, these new iterations of control decks don't have guaranteed inevitability. There's no Sphinx's Revelation. They had to play you pretty honest even later on in the game. So cards like Read the Bones, which I thought were pretty anemic against control decks before because you didn't have that much time. You had to win before Revelations went off. I think they get a lot better in the new standard format. The Chandra here seems very good to me as well.
Yeah, I like that. Not any crazy options here.
And just get
For
some
Marc.
removal out. Get the 3 copies of Chain of the Rocks out of the list and maybe one other removal spell as well. The Murderous Cut. I would keep in the Banishing Light because Joe might present something, but a lot of the creature-specific removal I think Marc can safely sideboard out.
And again, Joe opting for blue-black control, the very traditional approach, as one would say. Cuneo building his deck with no Ashioks, no targets for removal outside of Pearl Lake Ancient, but if you get to that point in the game, well, Pearl Lake Ancient's going to get the job done, as you can't really stop that thing unless your opponent lets you.
Yep.
Well, we'll see how Lossett and Griffin do opt to sideboard here. Lossett will be on the play for game number 2.
Like I said earlier, I wish R&D put in one really good, hard to kill, hard to counter blue finisher in every format just to ensure the games wrap up. So 1 Aetherling, 1 Pearl Lake Ancient, one of those kind of cards.
I miss the Millstone days.
That takes a really long time.
Sure does.
Nephalia Drown Yard, it's.
I like that. That's the way to get
At some
him.
point, we got to go on living our lives. You know what I mean? We can't sit here all day and wait for this. We know what the outcome's going to be, and we have other things to do with our time.
Everything you've just said, Cuneo disagrees with.
I know Cuneo
Doesn't agree with you at all.
But Cuneo also really likes winter orbs a lot. We can't be defined by this man's taste because he is clearly a sadist.
I like Winter Orb too, to be fair. Maybe there's something wrong with both of us. Not quite sure.
I can understand the tournament spike in you liking to play with a winter orb, but in terms of Cedric Phillips, the commentator, I can't imagine you would like calling a game where it's, and he untap 1 land and just got tapped with the Knightsy Manipulator, and we're just waiting for this guy to find whatever his arbitrary win condition is somewhere down the line.
I suppose that's true.
Yep.
I suppose that's true.
I'd recommend taking the next 45 minutes, going and finding a loved one that you want to talk to, or reading a book, shutting out the covers, because no one would want to watch this. You know, it's hard. I don't want to call matches like that. So I prefer for these Pearl Lake Ancients to just kill people.
Well, that's why I want Armageddon back. That ends the game.
Sometimes yes, sometimes no.
Yeah. Neither player has lands. I have something left in play. You lose.
Right.
It's kind of like a win condition.
It is sort of like a win condition. Armageddon comes with other gameplay consequences.
5-man Armageddon. That's where it's got to be. 3 white.
It would still show up too much and be too horrible.
Gosh.
Sorry, man.
I'm just sad that I agree with you.
Yep.
That's all. The
notice
reprinting
that
of
card?
Armageddon would get me to take the headset off and go back into the play area.
You know what card synergizes really nicely with Armageddon?
Do tell.
Murderous Cut, because they have a guy left over.
That's what I'm talking about. There you go. There you go.
That's how you build a deck.
That's absolutely.
They have their one stupid Burmaz Butcher the Horde left over.
That'll get me out of the booth. You reprint Armageddon, I'm hanging up this headset, and I'm getting back out there. The white creatures could all be horrible,
Right.
and I'll get back out there.
But that's the thing. You get a certain amount of power points you get to put in. If you're R&D, do you make a bunch of stinky white creatures in Armageddon, or do you make a bunch of sweet-looking creatures in no Armageddon? Let's say it makes the white aggressive deck the same power level. They probably sell more boosters and create more fun making a bunch of sweet white creatures in no Armageddon than the other way around.
Well, no, I mean, obviously Armageddon should not be a thing. But for Spike Cedric,
Oh, yeah, sure.
I want to blow up all your lands, and you can't do anything while I'm attacking you with who knows what.
Spike Patrick made a lot of money at FNM with turn 2 Port, you turn 3 Stone Rain, turn 4 Smokestack. So you don't got to tell me about
Tough guy.
what the worst parts of my personality will let out. But
Dismal Backwater going to start things up here with the set. He's at 21. We got a Nomad Outpost there for Griffin.
kill him with an Avalanche Rider, you pay Echo on that thing. Just keep beating down.
8
You know
mana,
why?
8 mana for a 2/2.
Because they don't have any lands in play, so it's fine. You can kill with anything.
A Temple of Deceit. Lossett will scry. Top card looks like it may be headed to the bottom here for Joe.
Looked like a Bile Blight, so I think that if he has another answer all ready to go for a Rabble Master, that'll send the Bile Blight to the bottom. But if he needs an answer to Rabble Master, he probably leaves it.
Battlefield Forge, pass the turn back over to Lossett. Will Griffin. Another Dismal Backwater is going to bring Joe up to 22. Oh, these value lands. It's an Urborg, providing all the black mana in the world. Goblin Rabble Master. Does it get to do anything is the question.
Again, I think that if Joe put a Bioblight to the bottom, he has to have an answer. He would not leave himself just unprotected.
Bioblight does take care of the Rebel Master. So let's see what'll happen here.
Probably Joe will, I'm going to predict, play a land and say go.
Oh, wow. Wow, look at you.
And he just could not be happier.
Somebody get this man a raise. But which land will he play? He's got Evolving Wilds, among other things.
Two different comes into play tap lands, so...
What to do? It's Evolving Wilds. Oh, you are so wrong.
Whoa, Joe, slow down.
The Merc Lurker. You didn't expect to see him play a spell, but he did.
He did.
See what Griffin can put together on his fourth turn of the game. You see a Windmate Rock in the grip. Don't know if he's got a Butcher hanging out or not.
Interesting that Joe would not sack the land straight away, because this does allow Marc to play 2 Lightning Strikes and kill. I guess 2 Lightning Strikes always kills the Merc Lurker, so he can just let this go.
Also, he can trick him a little bit because he actually Urborg makes everything a swamp.
Oh.
So that's a little tricksy
Gotcha.
play. Yeah, yep.
Joe's so crafty.
I gotta get you in tune with these Urborg interactions, man.
Yeah.
This one, Backwater, going to come into play. Every Urborg interaction, you just got to see him. Ashcall Phoenix can be a bit of a headache, though.
I don't always ID the Urborg in play because, who cares? But it comes up all the time.
It comes up all the time. It does so many relevant things. Oh, look at now.
Whoa.
Now the Merc Lurker is feeling frisky. It is a 2/4 after all.
You can't block.
Yeah. And now we're lifelinking. We're playing an interesting game now.
Joe likely had some removal spells to follow up there. Was willing to trade away the Merc Lurker and a removal spell to take care of this Phoenix. It's a problematic card for control decks.
Yeah. Especially blue-black. No banishing lights hanging out of here. In for 4. Looks like going to go down to 23. Griffin's going to tap a lot of mana. This is a Wingmate Rock. But Joe has a Disdainful Stroke at the ready. Don't forget that Evolving Wilds because of Urborg. It taps for a black mana. And of course, Joe knows that.
Of course.
He does untap and draw a card here. An island is what he's found. He will deploy the AC Perilous Vault in the hand. Looks like Lossett may go lifelinking. So in for 2 more. Is it time to drop the vault? Just going to pass the turn back. Counter Magic at the ready. Griffin with another land to play. He did draw a Swamp.
Though things are going well for Joe, or at least he's keeping his head above water, I don't think this pacing of the game is sustainable.
Griffin going to read the bones.
If
And
Joe-
that will resolve.
If Joe turns this into a pure damage race, Marc's going to overpower him eventually.
2 lands go to the bottom very quickly. A Mountain and a Temple of Silence. The draws here are Bloodstained Mire and a copy of Goblin Rabble Master. Keep in mind, Griffin has not played a land yet. There is a land. And now there is the Rabble Master. Lossett going to take a look at the grip. Might be time for that Merc Lurker to slow down. And if there's an attack for 5, Lossett's going to go down to 18.
And I don't mind Joe playing a little defense now because he absorbs a lot of damage just leaving his Merc Lurker back and lifelinking, blocking the goblins.
Yep, I'm with you there. Lossett going to consult the grip. He's going to sacrifice the Evolving Wilds finally. Go get himself an island. Again, all the black mana in the world because of Griffin's Urborg. And momentarily, we will see what Joe's able to put together on his next turn of the game. Again, does have a copy of Perilous Vault in the grip. Ready to go to get these things off the table.
And Marc is very light on action. I think just a land, just Lance and a Butcher of the Horde left over in his hand.
Bloodstained Mire the play for the turn. See how Lossett does opt to tap his mana for the Vault. Gonna leave the Mire available, as there is the Mythic Artifact ready to blow things up. Crackling Doom, the draw for the turn. There's a Nomad Outpost. 2 and 3. Crackling Doom. Gonna take care of the Merc Lurker.
Now, you may ask, why would you Crackling Doom when Joe probably has to just blow everything up with a Perilous Bolt? But Marc gives up a lot of damage by leaving the Merclurker in play this turn. He gets a hit with everything now and deny Joe some life because of a lifelink trigger off of the Merclurker. So
It's an attack for 10.
not the most efficient use of resources, but it's just so much damage I don't think Marc can give it up.
10 is so much.
Oh, yeah.
As the set is down to 6 now. Griffin gonna draw a card. Copy of Hordling Outburst.
If I'm Marc, just moving into combat here.
Yeah, nothing fancy. Nothing fancy at all. Looks like they're making sure they have life totals correct here at the game. And then we will get ours updated as well. Make sure no triggers were missed.
Joe took a total of 12 last turn.
Yep.
10 from combat plus 2 from the Crackling Doom.
There's a trigger from the Rabble Master. Kaboom! Goes everything. Can't forget the Vault does exile, so no tricks there with the Ash Cloud Phoenix. There's a Hordling Outburst. That's a great follow-up. Oddly enough, I remember the first time I saw Hordling Outburst. Not a card that I really put a lot of thought or respect into. Much better than I gave it credit for.
Well, the format right now is defined so much by these 1-for-1 removal spells and not a lot in the way of sweepers. So Hordling Outburst is not great against blockers, but these Mardu decks are equipped with so much in the way of removal spells that it can just be 3 power for 3 mana and synergize with a bunch of stuff and give you a lot of protection against individual removal spells.
A huge top deck there from Lossett. Drew a copy of the Merclurker. Griffin draws a copy of Butcher of the Horde. He already had one of those.
Now he's got 2 of them, yep.
Yeah. So here's 4 mana. Using the Bloodstained Mire there with Urborg. A second, and very quickly, I think the Stains will stroke this. Can't let this thing hang around.
Absolutely not.
The problem isn't the first one. The problem is the second one. Oh, Joe is thinking about maybe letting this resolve.
He does have a Hero's Downfall in hand.
Yeah? Will he sacrifice the Bloodstained Mire? He will. Interesting. Gonna get a Swamp out of the deck. This is a Disdainful Stroke.
So if he's sacking the fetch land here, I imagine it's because he has Dig Through Time as one of his last cards.
And the problem with that is the second Butcher.
Yep. And let's see. Well, now Marc doesn't even have to do anything fancy. Before he would have to give with Joe at 6, he would have to give his Butcher the Horde haste with one of the tokens, attack with everything. Joe blocks something, and he would have to sacrifice the thing he blocks to give some arbitrary keyword to the other Butcher to prevent the lifelink trigger. But now at 5, he can just send just the Butcher.
Yep. So all his damage is going to come across. Joe's going to show the 2 cards in his hand. He's going to concede the game. Marc Griffin's going to win this match over Joe Lossett 2-0. Mardu mid-range taking down blue-black control. Butcher of the Horde showing its power.
It was definitely problematic for Joe. And the Hordling Outburst there was great because it gave Marc so much fuel there on that last turn. Now, the way that Joe played it, it wasn't really required that he had all those tokens. But if Joe just leaves up his mana there and doesn't sacrifice the Bloodstained Mire, Marc needs all 3 tokens to make the Butcher lethal that turn. So